Everyone, welcome to Rehash the Rolls. Where we've had some crazy couple weeks, and we didn't even get to talk about it after the previous session because of Eldritch Noir. So we have with us today Patrick and Michael and Mike. We're excited to get into this. But first, Patrick's got some announcements for us. Patrick?
Mm-hmm. So, on June 4th, we are going to be having a one-shot run by Eric Taylor. Yeah, he used to be the old Rehash the Rolls host. So he's going to be running a one-shot for us on June 4th. So that's not this Friday, but the Friday afterwards. He's going to be running the Savage Worlds system. So it'll be a jaunt from our normal D&D 5e, but he's going to be running Savage Worlds, and he's going to be the title of the one shot is called The Oracle's Ossuary. It looks like it's going to be very interesting. It will have some of our regular faces, so specifically me, Lydia, and Adam, as well as Sarah, who's been on a few things. You will recognize them, and it'll also have some new faces that you haven't seen before that we hope to keep seeing around here. So yeah, come tune in for that. I'll plug another reminder at the end of the show, but it's going to be a good time.
All right, yeah. We're definitely excited for that. Imagine it could get a little bit deadly. Heard some rumors about this DM, but with the announcements out of the way,
I don't expect us all to make it out alive. But
I mean, in a one shot.
But in a one shot, it's a lot less important.
Yeah. Well, then let's get on with our questions for tonight. So, lots has happened, and we obviously won't be able to cover all of it tonight since many of the cast aren't here to really give their reactions and responses. But we definitely are happy to have Mike with us to talk about not just the last couple sessions, but also his time with us in the campaign. So as a start, Mike, just what was your favorite part about the campaign?
Favorite part? Probably being in a new world. For most of you that probably don't know, I've been playing D&D with Patrick for the past 10-ish years. And all of those 10 years have been in the same world. So over the course of a few different campaigns, it's just been one continuous history sort of deal. But it was fun being in a new world.
That's awesome. I gotta say, true fans don't kill me. I haven't seen all of the first episodes. I came in a little bit late to start watching, but I really think that there were some really cool Kadiock moments, especially in these last couple. So I'm excited for us to get into those as well. And so kind of rolling along with that as a more kind of general question, we won't get any confirmation from Patrick, I'm sure, but do you have any theories about what's to come for the rest of the party?
Probably nothing groundbreaking. I imagine that Piotr's deal is definitely going to come into play. But,
yeah, I don't really remember too much about that. Can you expand on what you mean by that?
Sure. So I would say that because Piotr doesn't seem to be fully aware of what happened that day, and the same thing happened with Corvette when he wasn't fully aware of what happened, there's definitely some Dark Priestess death happening there.
Yeah, I gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, well, Patrick wouldn't have had it happen if it wasn't going to mean something, but. So then to Patrick, thinking about, with Kadiock leaving the party, and especially towards that very end of this last episode, his eye, or rather Maeve's eye, faded. So is Maeve gonna still be around? Seems like she wanted to keep an eye on the party.
No, yeah, definitely, Maeve's gonna be around. She does still require a favor of the party, though she did answer the party's questions just because Kadiock's gone. Kadiock's eye was for an extra thing. I'm trying to remember exactly why Kadiock gave up his eye. It's been a long time. I think Kadiock gave up his eye as an extra part of the deal. As a kind of for his own thing, if I remember. I think it was specifically the information regarding where a teleportation that circle that they discovered had gone. And so that's why Kadiock gave up his eye for that. But Maeve will still be around because the party still owes her a favor. She still has something that she wants the party to do, and so she will call again to have it, make sure that her favor is done.
Of course. So how is she keeping track of what the party's doing then?
She is an elder fae. She has her magic. She has her ways. It's not like she's just she's not a lesser fae. She's an elder fae. She's one of the most powerful fae out there. So she basically on the verge of godlike power. He has her ways.
Well, yeah, certainly.
Getting Kadiock's eye was less of a way to be viewing the party and keeping track of what the party was, and more of just she's a fae. She does what tickles her fancy, and that's what tickled her fancy at the time. I want Kadiock's eye, and so. Yeah, that's what she did.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was about to ask, what's the point then? But of course, fae are fae gonna fae.
Exactly.
Going back to the previous episode, Patrick.
Uh-huh.
How prevalent are dragons in Inara?
Well, so. A plot appropriate amount. I mean, there's not like there's tons and tons of dragons. It's not like you're gonna see dragons, flying around every day, but there is a degree of reverence and respect for dragons in general, since all the gods are dragon gods. And so, probably what's pretty standard for a D&D world. They're there mostly in the wilderness, because that's the thing is even though there's a lot of information about the world, most of the world is still wilderness, and even though the Empire has a strong hold over the civilized areas, the uncivilized areas are still very much kind of untamed and outside of its control. And same for the other countries, and the other countries, and now on the other continent is that they have their control. It's just kind of what it was in the medieval era, is you had control over the population centers, and then outside of the population centers, bandits, whatever. And so in this case, instead of bandits, you have random orc goblin tribes and dragons.
Yeah, yeah. Still, that being said, how significant is it that the party defeated a dragon? Like, is that a common occurrence? Or
No, not at all, which is why Jelania earned her title of Dragon Slayer and the special sword that she got after, when they went and visited the Boyar afterwards, because it's not a common occurrence at all. It's not like, it's not like it's not like the dragons are having hundreds and hundreds of children like humans are. Their breeding cycle is a lot longer than that of a human, and so there's going to be the dragon population is growing at a slower rate. So, but it's a significant thing because you don't generally see dragons, and two, you don't see dragons attacking big cities, and three, if you do, most of the time you get injured, and then you injure the dragon and they fly away. And so the fact that they actually killed the dragon is a huge deal.
would that dragon have flown away given the chance? Was it given the chance? Or is there something else compelling it to stay?
It probably would not have driven away. So it probably would. Flown away. It would have probably stayed given the circumstances of why it was present.
Gotcha. Wonderful non-answer. And just one more on the dragon. We saw a bit of frustration when Kadiock offered only a horn from the dragon. What was the plan there?
I mean, I'm sure that I don't know, you're going to have to ask the two people who tried to, I 100% don't, I'm sure their plan was to offer up the dragon's head and have it become like a trophy or something.
No, I guess what was the Boyar? It was the Boyar who was, what was his plan?
I mean, dragon parts are very, very valuable. And so he gave the order to his guards to, one, not touch it, and two, not let anyone else touch it. And so, dragon parts are very valuable. Their scales can get turned into armor. Their other parts can be used for various medicinal/magical purposes. So, as well as dragon meat is considered a huge delicacy, particularly young dragon meat. It kind of gets tougher the older you get, and that was a younger dragon. And so they were very much... so he was definitely kind of miffed that there were people who were messing around with the bodies, because he had plans. Like, he could have gotten a lot of money off that, bolstered his coffers, because currently he is fighting a huge small scale war against Norsay. So it's definitely and to be fair, the only support he's gotten from the Empire so far is, hey, we're gonna send these 4 guys. So, like, it's definitely gonna, taking a huge drain on his coffers, because he's gonna have to pay all the soldiers who came. He's gonna have to, reimburse people who've had their lands destroyed. And so he was definitely hoping to make make a profit off that dragon's death that has kind of been ruined by scavengers and natural ones. So.
Yeah. So who were the others that came before Jelania?
I mean, the fair assumption would be guards who wanted to line their own pockets, as well as people who were just there's always kind of always what happens after a huge battle of that sort is there civilian scavengers who'll come by and look through the wreckage and see what they can find. And so probably a mixture of guards and others and civilians who just wanted to line their pockets and get some money. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a mage or two who came by to try to get some fancy components for maybe some fancy spells or stuff like that, or potions. But
well, anyone looking for money is probably gonna have to dodge the guards for a while.
Definitely, yeah. It's not like you probably won't see those things on the market for a while, but you will let so maybe a year or two down the road, suddenly some white dragon scales will be popping up in the marketplaces of Norgarn, or suddenly the school of sorcery will have a huge huge influx of dragon parts that they've been buying, things like that. So definitely won't see them immediately, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's also kind of just what you expect when you throw a dragon in there. It's like you always expect that the party is going to be, I want to loot the dragon, I want to get as many parts from it as I can, because players are aware of the fact that dragons can be, dragon parts can be used in that. So particularly for a low level party, to a degree, you kind of like try to find ways to, one, not bloat the amount of gold they have, and two, not give them access to these super powerful magic items that they probably shouldn't have at the level they are. So you find ways, you find excuses as to why they might not have been as successful in their harvest of the dragon as they would hope, and natural ones only help with that.
Yeah. I mean, luck is really key in writing these stories, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah.
Now, shifting topics. There was a lot of talk between Jelania and Yarrick.
Mhm.
I have that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
So I have 1,000,001 questions for her about that, but for you, Patrick, if Yarrick had accepted sainthood, would there have been 13 saints, or would one of the others been excluded?
Well, if he had accepted sainthood, there would have been 13 saints.
Sorry.
You're good.
We live in the middle of the woods, and somehow we have an insane amount of noise out our window. Well, yeah, I mean, that does make sense, though there is, I guess, do you have any sort of, like, numerology stuff in
Yes.
your world?
Personally, the number 6 and the multiples of 6 are very important to me. That's how the numerology in my world functions, is on multiples of 6 or the number 6 itself. And so in the backstory, when I was writing it, it was always going to be 12 saints. But to make the story more interesting, it was this story that the church has told to explain why Yarrick was an actual saint, versus Yarrick, choosing to not accept. And a part of the conversation that Jelania didn't get to see is that the reason Yarrick made the decision he did was to try to compel his descendants and the descendants of those who followed him to make the decisions to where they didn't have to join his army in hell. If he had become a saint, let's look at, we'll just look at the regular people, all 12 of the saints are human. And in Inara, humans just kind of act. They just live, they're average, normal people. But of course, due to the lore of the world, humans don't have the same kind of requirements on them that the tieflings do, because of the decisions of their ancestors. So, because so Yarrick made the decision he did to try to, compel his descendants and the sense of his followers to make what he views as the right decision. And so, that has kind of had mixed effect, to, there are, tieflings kind of fall in this spectrum in the world of Inara. They are either really good followers of the church, or they are on the other side where they're like, nah, screw the church, I hate the church. And in what we've seen story-wise, the dichotomy of that is we have I have to remember his name. Let me pull his name up real quick. But we have Jelania, who's on the side of, no, screw the church, I hate the church. Church is bad. And then on the other side, in the Silhana's Chosen, we have Idalian, who is the tiefling cleric in that group. And he is I am following Silhana, and I am going to try to overcome my blood through her grace instead of I'm going to, overcome it on my own.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I know you've got reasons why you can't necessarily confirm a lot of this stuff, but I guess I am very curious about how true that is. Like, okay, there's definitely some kind of curse on that blood and that there will be tieflings. And that comes with stigma, stigmatism around it from society in general. But is there actually are they actually needing to overcome anything, or is that just part of the myth?
No, and I won't give a firm answer or anything, but we do know that they do have demonic blood in them, and so they, and there are, and so they probably, and they have, they do have demonic blood, and in most D&D lore, having that demonic blood does tend to lean them towards certain tendencies. However, I personally am you cannot blame you cannot put the sins of the fathers on the children's heads person. I don't think that's fair, personally in my life, and so there may be more to it than Yarg is letting on, but I can neither confirm nor deny. I will say they do have two options. In the end, it is their decisions do determine their destinies. They either will end up by Silhana's side, or they will end up in Yarg's army. It's just, how they end up there. It might be, a little bit more complicated than Yarg's black and white answer.
And of course, not if Jelania has anything to say about that.
My son's got a croup, so I had to go get him settled back and calm down.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. That's understandable. Yeah.
So much fun.
So how about for both of you? I don't know, like, the Urdine path. Was Kadiock on his way to becoming a werebear?
He was, yes.
Yes. That would have been the ultimate plan. That would have been the ultimate eventuality, yes.
And how close was he?
Finishing off Podara would have been his final task, and after this, he probably, he would have gone and done the ceremony. But that was the plan before plans changed.
I mean, at one point, I was even going to start as a werebear, but I figured for balance sake that a level 1 werebear being, immune to any non-magic, non-silvered weapons probably wouldn't be fair. I mean, even as it is, I wouldn't.
All your resistances as a barbarian, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad that you talked me out of, because it was Mike talking me out of having him start. I was like, no, I'm fine with it. I'll just make sure all the enemies have silvered weapons. Like, no, other players will probably think that's unfair, and I'm just like, oh, whatever. And so he was the one talking me out of letting him start with the werebear. In hindsight, I'm glad that he did.
I would have loved it. It would have made for some great role-playing and story beats. Not to mention, the nice combat bonuses. Yeah. But yeah, no. Looking back, I as it was, I was basically the hardest one to kill in the party anyway. So
yes, and trust me, I tried.
I mean, this last fight, even with Jara and everybody else wailing on me as much as they did, I still had 20 hit points at the end. And
That fight did not go how I thought it was going to at all.
yeah, at level 7, right? Yeah. So at level 7, I hit 100 hit points exactly. My last character to get that was level 15, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Barbarians.
Yeah. Can't do much, but man, they can take a hit.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't like you were doing big chunks of
It's true.
damage when you were.
Yeah.
Once you stopped trying to grapple and started actually hitting Podara, you were doing better.
Well, I was trying to get her out of the dang circle.
No, that was fair.
Then you went and stepped in it.
Yeah.
When that happened, like I was like talking with Lydia, but I was also listening to it, and then I was just like, it's just like, what happened? What's going on? And I'm like, Kadiock stepped into the circle.
Yeah. So I knew that that was gonna be my last session. I didn't know how I was going out though. So Patrick didn't give me any.
He knew he was going to die.
Yeah.
He asked to die. I want to clarify that. So he knew he was going to die, which is why it wasn't a combat death.
Right. Because I've had enough characters die in Patrick's campaigns and just in general that I'm not I don't. Character deaths for me is not a big deal because I always have at least 3 backup characters. But beyond that, I also I've had one character, I think, in one of the other campaigns I played with Patrick that left the party without dying, and it just didn't feel right. Like the story that I had built for him was like, why would he leave? But I couldn't think of a good enough reason for him to stay either. And at the time, the character just wasn't working. So I'm like, I want him to get out, but at that time I wanted.
Because you tried to play Beastmaster Ranger before they
Yeah.
fixed it.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm good. After that, I played Theo, the Halfling Wizard, which is another fun character and various fun stories out of him if you want to ask me about it. But, yeah. So, yes, I did want Kadiock to either die or be taken by Maeve and ascended to elderhood. But we can see how that turned out.
Yeah. So, on that note, does that mean Podara was deceived?
I mean, as far as I'm aware, yes. So
I don't know, maybe I wasn't heavy-handed enough with the clues, but I thought I was dropping enough clues to give the idea that Podara was being deceived.
I mean, I got it, but
I feel like I was convinced personally in the other direction until like it was always meant to be you, but yeah, because I mean she seemed so sure and so capable of imposing her will in a lot of ways, but I guess in the end.
So, I mean, Patrick, I'm not gonna spill many beans here, but there is some history and lore about about the elder that Podara was following, who was not actually an elder, and there's a reason that both Eladin and Maeve hadn't heard of this elder before. So I will say that.
Gotcha.
I think that's tongue wetting or lip wetting enough without spilling anything of substance, Patrick.
I really wasn't trying to be overly secretive about it. Like I was dropping clues that I hope people would get. If people didn't get it, clearly I wasn't being heavy-handed enough. But no, yeah, it should have been very apparent that at least definitely by the end that Podara was being deceived and that there's something else at work. And actually, a lot of the things that Piotr has been reading in Svetla's journal are connected in ways, but I don't expect anyone to understand how they're connected quite yet.
I mean,
Of course.
that's because I've got other information.
Man, I feel like I need to get some kind of board and just have that as my background in here. Just one of those conspiracy theory boards. I'm just gonna.
I mean, yeah, that'd be good.
doing that, and
I mean, let's see. I'm trying to think of the other fun tidbits that I can spill.
I mean, the bug things that have been in the past few two combats are important.
Yes.
Those are important things involved in what's actually going on there.
Oh, I've got one. Magic. The colors of magic are very important in Patrick's worlds.
Yep.
And there was a difference between my purple and Bedara's purple, and that difference is important. I will say that much because that's out of character knowledge and doesn't give much away unless you dig really, really deep.
yeah, and in which case, maybe deserve to know, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff that'll come out. Like, I'm not intentionally trying to be super secret. Like, I mean, I am trying to be super secret, but it'll come out. You'll all learn in time. It's just like, you know, Mike's been playing in my worlds for 10 years, and so he knows things, lots of things. So,
even, you know, I think I can say this much. Patrick, stop me if you can figure out where I'm going. You know, I shouldn't say this, but the other world that I played in with Patrick is part of a multiverse. So, knowing lore from that and knowing lore about the multiverse as a whole and in general does also help me in connecting some of the dots that people wouldn't get because they haven't played with Patrick for 10 years and had long midnight conversations, you know, when we were 14 years old and having sleepovers about it.
Yeah,
it's all connected.
So let's get to some Kadiock specific questions. And just some of these kind of moments towards the end there. So was Kadiock disappointed about the fact that Corvette got the killing blow there?
Admittedly, yes, a little bit. But he was also just glad to see her die. Because he was aware that basically the way that he was viewing it was Corvette assisted his kill. Because Kadiock did most of the damage, and he was the one that was literally hauling her around and, you know, sticking her in a cloud of daggers and, you know, basically holding her so that Corvette could get the blow. But he's like, you know, hunting is a pack sort of deal.
In any FPS, the kill would have gone to Corvette, and you would have been the one with the assist.
It's true.
Though when I talk about
no, you're good.
When I talk about some of these kind of outstanding Kadiock moments that I was thinking of over the last couple sessions, the holding into the knives, that was great.
I mean, I was trying to think. All right, great. I can't let her go because if I let her go, she's gonna be hurting other people a lot more now because I've started hitting her too. She might just hit me, but just in case, I don't want to let her go. And if I let her go, she's gonna get back inside that circle. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I damage her without getting, you know, majorly disadvantaged and still being able to, you know, have a decent amount of damage output? Because yeah, sure, I could beat her with a fist, but it would only do, you know, D4. Like, yeah. Then I was like, oh hey, that's over there, and looked it up, and you can move half your movement with a grapple. I'm like, okay, well, that's only 10 feet away. That's not even a third of my movement. Let's go. So once I had her, make sure I still had her, I was scooted her over. I'm like, okay, great. This is magical damage, so it will hurt the werebear part of her. It's decent damage output, and also it's really awesome. So I'm like, why not do it?
Yeah. Yeah, but I'd say it was inspired.
I will say that a bit of my actions as Kadiock was covered by, okay, how awesome is this? Is this going to be an awesome thing if it works? Yes. All right. Hence the time where I think when we were fighting Svetla, I leaped over the altar and hit her in midair as I was going, and then again in this fight when I hopped up onto the standing stone to try and make intimidation rolls or whatever. At that point, I didn't know that the cultists were just going to sit there. Otherwise, I would have taken one of them out of my way. But yeah, no, definitely it was okay. I am playing this character, and he seems to be an intimidating and generally awesome sort of doer. If he's going to spend energy, he's going to do it in a way that has a purpose. And if he's doing these things and they are intimidating to his foes, that would be worth spending energy on. So, make it awesome.
So with that, because you said that you had requested to die, and
become an elder, and dying was probably more likely.
Right, but were you thinking, like, did the death live up to your expectations of how Kadiock would die, or
it did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
but I guess
so. Go ahead.
Just in your mind, did you have something else?
I figured it might be something like that. I knew that it would happen, and I wouldn't need to roll. Or I wouldn't roll for defense or anything like that. I knew it was going to be a killing blow, whether it was a single dagger like happened, or if it was a mountain falling or whatever. I knew that something was going to happen, and he was going to be dead. If I died, unless I was getting ascended, but again, we knew that wasn't going to happen. So it was a very satisfying death, though, because if it was just some mugger in a street that just happened to have a super poison dagger or something, like, that'd be stupid. Like, oh, okay, he's dead, and his death didn't do anything. But the fact that it did further the storyline and made it meaningful was a big chunk of what I was going for. The viewers don't know this, but every once in a while, I would have these dreams where Kadiock would die anyway, real like actual dreams.
Yeah.
Oh look, we're playing D&D, and Kadiock and face, and one of the usually it was saving the rest of the party, sacrificing himself that way. So the fact that he was a sacrifice, not for them, but against them, it was still, at least it was definitely in character of the world, and it was a satisfying death for me as a player.
Well, that's good. Yeah, definitely don't be unfortunate to go out on a terrible note.
I mean,
few more rapid fire questions, just to get some of Kadiock's thoughts towards the end there. How did Kadiock feel about Artyom being royalty?
It didn't really mean much to him. because he was like, oh, okay, Corbert's a noble, you're a higher noble. Awesome. He was like, okay, great. You're a son of a king, and you are also a cleric. Cool. One of Kadiock's brothers, the third in line, is a shaman. So one of the Norsean wizards or priests or whatever you want to call them. But it was mentioned at one point that Kadiock's dad is the chief of the tribe, at least currently, and so he viewed it as the same way. Like, oh, okay, cool. My brother is a shaman and a priest, and son of a chief. Artyom is now not only dragon touch, so blessed by an elder, but he's also the son of a chief. Cool. So, if Kadiock knew or cared more about Mordeviran politics, it would probably mean a lot more to him. But as it was, he was like, okay, I know you hated nobles, but guess you have your reasons if you are one, so go for it.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense, like how Kadiock would put that together. What about any regrets or unfinished business?
Kadiock did have a little bit of unfinished business with Jelania, just, with her coming out and saying, hey, you're a raider. What the heck? Because in Kadiock's mind, they raid because they have to. Like, they can't farm in Norse. They have various herds, like there is the giant tundra turtle that they harvest the moss off of as well, and harvest some plants that way. But again, it's they're herds of livestock that they are cultivating some plants off of. It's not widespread farming. So generally, when Norseans raid, at least Norseans like Kadiock, not talking about Prodara's people or the other more bloodthirsty ones, but Kadiocks, they take things they need. So they take foods, they take supplies, wood, stone, that sort of thing. They don't care about money or jewelry. They can make their own, and frankly, they think it looks better than Mordeviran stuff. But there have been times where they've taken, looms or things to make textiles, chemicals for tanning leather, that sort of stuff.
Right.
So,
But
that is, I guess, a little bit. Sorry, that is a little bit of unfinished business, just because he's like, there's a reason we raid, and I get that you don't understand that because you're more Viren, but let me try and explain it to you.
Right, yeah. But towards the end, it did seem like he was changing his mind, maybe about how necessary that was, or
he was a little bit, because he was seeing more that it might be possible for them for the tribes to move out of the north and move down into Mordeviran, as long as they, were polite, basically. Because after seeing, in the travels that, look, there's still a lot of wide open space here. Like, Patrick was saying earlier, the empire spanned the population centers and the land in between. Well, if Mordeviran stayed to the land in between and just, followed the herds there and went into town when needed, and as long as the Mordevirans weren't, being super rude or attacking them, then great. Yeah, they could totally settle fine. So Kadiock was going to try and, once the world was saved, try and get his tribe, or at least a portion of it, to move down into Mordeviran and keep all of their same traditions and everything, and just be in Mordeviran instead of be up in Norse. Now, admittedly, again, because he doesn't know much about Mordeviran politics, that wouldn't go over well. And he didn't realize that, but that was his plan.
Yeah. But he definitely then saw some possibilities for change there.
because as far as he was concerned, the only Morvirans that were amicable towards Norsans were the ones that used to be Norsans. So, Norgarn and all the ones around Whitehorn.
Technically, they all used to be Norsans. They all came from the same descendancy. It was just a very early cultural change. The most recent ones that could be most called to Norsan were in the region of Norgarn, yes.
Right. But figuring the branch of where Morvirans became a thing instead of Norsans, that was where he considered the split to be. All right, at that point, you are Morvirans and we are Norsans. So, but yes, Patrick, obviously because it's your word. But yeah.
Well, let's see. I've got just a few more questions left.
Great.
We've danced around this a couple times. You always have joked about your backup characters. So you want to tell us anything about them? Can you show us, peel back the curtain there a little, and what kind of plans you might have had there, if it came to that?
Yes, let's see. So there was one, and Patrick liked this idea enough that he has incorporated at least some of it into the world. I don't know how much. We haven't run into anything yet, but if it comes to it, here's a little bit of a preview, if you will. So in the Tasha's Guide book that just came out, Tasha's Guide and Everything, or Tasha's College and Everything. There you go. That's what it is. Not guide. That's it. Tasha's College and Everything. The Druid subclass, the Wildfire Druid, was included in there, and so my first backup characters, is first string, or no, I guess that's second string. All you sports people can make fun of me, but the first one after Kadiock was going to be a Wildfire Druid, and he was going to Patrick, stop me if you want me to stop giving any more details, but so he would always wear a mask made from the burnt trees of his forest, because at one point his his people, their glade, their forest was burnt, and so all right, great. Well, we're going to follow the wildfires now. It's a sign. It's a sign of nature. Let's follow it. And so he has a wildfire spirit. That's a big part of the wildfire druid subclass is the wildfire spirit, and it would be in the shape of a firehawk, which is an actual bird. It's a bird in Australia. It's also called the Australian black kite. But in the wild, they will pick up burning things from wildfires or from campfires or whatever, and go and drop it in the dry grass to start wildfires and flush out their prey. And so I was like, well, that's a perfect animal for the wildfire spirit. So I was going to have a wildfire spirit in the shape of a firehawk. I was going to be a fire genasi, however you say it. But so that would have been the first time that the party would have what's the word? Interacted with. There we go. Interacted with a Gen campaign. I don't know about backstories, but as far as I know, it would have been the first for everyone that they would have interacted with and met, so that would have been cool. And I was planning, if Kadiock died earlier and I had picked up this character, I was planning on actually making the mask. I've got designs all made up for it. And I would have worn the mask on string, so that would have been fun. But I like making props for my character. That's like the medallion that I've got for Kadiock. I actually carved a wand for a different character once and brought it to the session and had it hidden up my sleeve until he cast his first spell, and that's when I whipped it out, and everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool." So, big nerd moment. But yeah, so there was him. So that was Yefrim. He was named after the patron saint of the wild that, Driftstad follows and everything. So there's that. So the next character back was going to be an artificer. So, and he was going to be a half orc. Was what it was. He was going to be a half orc artificer. I wasn't sure which subclass yet, of the artificer, but I knew he was going to be an artificer, and it was because he wanted to be a wizard and follow, in the school of sorcery and all that. But he ended up being more capable with his hands than with reading his books, and so he's like, okay, great, well, I'll be a mechanical wizard, which is an artificer, and so he was going to go that route. And then the third was going to be another fire-based character, except I was trying to convince Patrick to let me do a homebrew class that we saw years ago, but it was a homebrew fighting class, and it was all based around having your inner fire. It's called the Flame Knight, I think is what it is, or the Inferno Knight, something like that. But he was going to wield a chain, and he was going to be a tiefling or a tiefling, and the whole thing was a cult to some fiend was trying to make themselves into a new race of tieflings or tieflings, how do you want to say it, that was as powerful as the original ones, and they used my character as a sacrifice and a guinea pig, basically. And it didn't work. I would have just been a normal strength tiefling or tiefling, but I also would have had the demon constantly in my head talking to me because it wasn't enhanced. It wasn't, purged by Silhana or anything like that, the blood. So that would have been fun to roleplay. But yeah, the chain that he used would have been his chains that he was bound with when he was made into a tiefling. So those are my 3 backup characters for this campaign.
Gotcha. Oh, that's awesome.
Patrick, how close was I to letting you use that homebrew class if it came down to it?
Not very close. It's just we're streaming, so I'm trying. Like, I am always a guy who says story trumps rules, but when it comes to homebrew stuff like that, and ask Mike, I'm very, very reluctant to use any form of homebrew things. There's only ever been 2 homebrew classes I've allowed into my campaigns, but after very, very serious vetting, yeah, the shaman class. And
yes, I knew that one.
But the other one would be the Fire Knight class that no one's ever used.
Okay, gotcha. But I was trying to, but
yeah. But due to the fact that the nature of we're streaming it, it makes it a little bit different when it comes to using homebrew content. Besides, the lore of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, if it's if there's something that ends up going wrong with it, and it's just like, oh yeah, this was a bad choice. Well,
you're stuck.
And this was my 3rd bag character, so it would have taken a lot to get me to that point. But I'm sure Patrick had killed.
It's not possible. I have killed 2 of your characters in a single campaign, so
it's true.
Wouldn't have been possible.
So.
3 of them. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think a good question. This is for both of you to close us off. How would you like Kadiock to be remembered?
You want to go first, Patrick? I'll think.
Hey, you go first, because I know my voice will have a little bit more weight than yours at this moment. So you go first.
Okay, so I would like him to. Okay, well, that's 2-faceted question because there's always in character, out of character. Player knowledge, character knowledge. So. Player knowledge and out of character and everything, I would like him to be remembered as, this pretty awesome barbarian that tried to not be the typical super strong and dumb barbarian. Even though I end up being played like that a little bit anyway, just because of the nature of the rules and everything. But like him to be remembered as, someone that tried to break the mold a little bit and also tried to push some boundaries that wouldn't have been there if we had all been Morbians. In character, I'd like him to be remembered as a bridge almost between Norsay and Morbier, or at least the start of a bridge, showing both sides that, hey, there is actually, more to these people than just, oh, they're dumb raiders, they're villains, or, hey, those guys are stuck up and they stay in their houses and hoard everything to themselves. So, definitely have that be part of remembrance, as well as just the fact that I'd like him to be remembered for what he did in character, as, like, oh, hey, this is a, sure, he made a deal with Maeve, and he sacrificed an eye so we could all ask the question and learn answers. That was why he sacrificed the eye, because, the original deal was, okay, great, we will gather these things for you to get us out. And I was like, okay, great. And then it was, and we gave her a name. No, there was only 2 deals made. It was, we were going to give a name in exchange for answers, but then Kadiock was like, here, being Norsayan and understanding, at least in his eyes, a bit more about the elders. He said, I will give you something of greater importance so that we can actually ask questions of you and get responses. And so that is, I like him to be remembered fondly, or at least positively for that, as opposed to, he let a phage spy on us, because we had 2 angels already spying on us. And she's as powerful as a saint, basically. So.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little vision for a little vision. Yeah.
Exactly.
But there was something you said just a little bit when you were talking about how, as a player, you were talking about, like, not being a fully stereotypical barbarian, and honestly, I definitely noticed a lot of that as a viewer of the show. Like, there were a lot of those moments of especially the gifts. Like, Kadiock was really big on meaningful gifts, and I thought that showed a lot of even if in other moments he was quiet or not as, I don't know, strategic about the planning sessions or whatever you want to say, there was a quiet thoughtfulness to him, for sure. And I really thought those gifts were a great idea to show that kind of side of him.
And so, a bit of background that the reason why I did it that way was because, yes, I wanted him to have more personality than I hit things. I am a barbarian, I hit things. Or, Grog from Critical Roles, I would like to rage and I will drink my drink. Okay, that's great. But, that's most barbarians. It's, at least, that's the stereotypical barbarian. And so, okay, great, I will have him be the crafter of the party. As well as because, Morsayans are nomadic, and so they don't have a lot of possessions. So the ones that they do have need to be very. He made blankets, and he made mugs, and he did these other gifts that could be used as well as just things. So yeah. There's some background to that.
Well then, Patrick, you said you have thoughts, and
how would I like Kadiock to be remembered? Obviously, by our audience, I would like Kadiock to be remembered as a very important part of the party and, very important character in the whole thing. However, when it comes to the game, I want every character to kind of decide for themselves, because every character had their own interactions. Like, Artyom and Kadiock butted heads. Jelania and Kadiock butted heads. Drith and Kadiock got along fairly well, and so it's like I think that'll be an interesting thing to see is how over the next few sessions how Kadiock is going to be remembered, because it's a death. It's the first death of a of a good guy, for lack of a better term, that they have seen in the campaign so far, besides nameless NPCs. It's an actual, party member, someone they've been traveling with for 2-3 months. In the, so like they need, they need, it's someone closer to home than someone who's going to have more of an impact, and so they kind of need to. Like I want the players to come to their own conclusions of how they want of how they are going to remember Kadiock. Because I think that will be really interesting to see over the next few sessions. Is because they're all gonna have different things. Particularly, if Drith and Artyom ever return, even if it's for like a session, like if they return for just even a session and find out that Kadiock died, it'll be interesting to see how they reacted. So I can definitely see some of them having fond memories of Kadiock, and I can see others kind of almost being like, don't take this the wrong way, but others being not necessarily happy, but almost indifferent to Kadiock's death, or conflicted, like, we didn't get along, but I didn't want him dead, that kind of stuff. And I think it'll lead to interesting character development.
I could see a lot of that with.
Sorry. I was especially curious because last session they were everyone was weepy and teary-eyed and everything about the fact that Artyom and Drith went off on their own adventure. Basically, like, oh hey, they got assigned to a different group project than us. Oh darn! Kadiock was like, okay, we'll see. Like this never came up because we wanted to move on and stuff. But if people had asked Kadiock, how are you feeling about them, he would have been like, they're still alive. They are hunting They're hunting in a different place than we are. They're still going towards our goal. I say good luck to them, and we'll see them after this is all done. So he was, honestly, he wasn't very broken up, but obviously I was broken up about it because I didn't want Adam and Luke to leave. I wanted to keep playing because I like them. They're my friends and everything. But as a character, Kadiock was like, okay, cool. I've on raids we have split up many times and all come back at the same time. But so it'll be interesting to see how they react since I am dead. Unless they visit some spirit plane, I won't be with them again. At least not as Kadiock.
And I think the reactions were different because of the situation that was going on.
Definitely.
They definitely were like, oh crap, this next sacrifice just happened, trying to stop it versus actually having time to mourn. Like they didn't exactly have time to mourn. In the next session they will get time to mourn and we'll get to see everyone's reactions. But it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, Mike, of course, it's been awesome seeing all that you've done with the character and how that's impacted the campaign and the other characters. And yeah, I agree. We've got a lot of interesting things. Kadiock will certainly still be impactful, and it'll be interesting to see all of that coming up. Well, with that, unless there are any last comments? Sorry.
I'm excited to see how they react to delivering the news of Kadiock's death to his giant family. And there are certain aspects of the family that I am pretty excited to see how they react. And Patrick knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. That medallion comes with a promise of future events. All right. Yeah. so much to look forward to. Thank you both for being on. Thank you, audience, for being with us. We're having a blast here, and hope that you all are along for the ride with us, enjoying it just as much. We will see you with the next thing coming up. I guess that's for this. It's just next week. When we will be, as mentioned last week, having a new cast member join us. So look forward to that. Look forward to One Shot coming up in the future. And we'll see you all there. Thanks.